Hi everyone, welcome to This Week in Space Science. I'm Michael Baltimore. I'm here as usual with Dr. Sean Cruzen, who's the director of the Coca-Cola Space Science Center here in Columbus, Georgia, affiliated with Columbus State University. And we're going to hear all about space, what's going on Earth, and a comet that's coming by very close to us, and a few other things today. So let's get started with our show. Sean, welcome to This Week in Space Science.
Hi Mike, thanks. It's good to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you here. Now, you've got a list of topics as you bring in every week for us to discuss, and we want to go there a little bit. Now, we've heard something about a delay with the shuttle launch. Is that right?
Yeah, we're waiting for the Space Shuttle Discovery to get ready to launch. It's sitting on the launch pad. This is one of the last two shuttle flights that are on the official docket for launch. So it's kind of an important and historic flight for Shuttle Discovery. It'll be the last flight for the Shuttle Discovery. Now, as it's sitting there on the launch pad, of course, it's getting ready to launch. It was initially scheduled to launch on Monday, November 1st. And as we're recording the show here today, this is Friday, November the 5th. And there's been a series of either mechanical problems and delays or weather delays that have pushed it off to this point.
Yeah, we were just talking about maybe another leak just last week or the week before.
Exactly. That's exactly right. There was a leak in the fuel system that is for the navigational system once it's in space, the orbital maneuvering system. However, they got that fixed. They thought they were ready to go yesterday, but then the weather turned bad, and so that delayed yesterday's flight. They pushed it off until this afternoon. But I've just read, just literally right before airtime here, as I'm coming on air, this just in, it's going to get bumped off until Monday, and that's because there's some other kind of fuel leak. So yet another fuel leak problem.
Wow. Okay.
With the Shuttle Discovery. And actually, I have to admit, I just saw the headline. I'm not really sure what's leaking now, but I don't know if it's the same problem or if there's a different location for a fuel leak. But obviously, when you're about to launch this incredibly complicated machine.
Oh, that's a beautiful picture of it, what we have on the screen right now.
Absolutely lovely shot of Space Shuttle Discovery sitting on the launch pad down there at Kennedy Space Center. And this is the most complex machine ever built by human beings. And so
right.
There are so many systems. People say, well, how come they can't get that thing right and get it ready to launch? Well, there are an incredible number of systems that are on this on the shuttle, and everything has to work at 100%. And so they just can't launch this thing without making sure that everything's quite right. And if they've got a fuel leak in particular, that's one that they are very, very careful about making sure they have locked down and squared away before they take that thing off at Kennedy Space Center. So they're looking at that today. They're going to bump that launch off obviously until Monday, okay. And so Monday at the earliest now for the flight of Space Shuttle Discovery.
Well, you mentioned the leaks, the fuel leaks and so forth, and I asked that question last week, if you recall that, and your answer had to do with just the temperature that they have to keep this fuel at. It's so cold. And also those little rings, the little connectors between all of those hoses and various components in the space shuttle, and that certainly made sense to me now. When we see these leaks, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, that's right. There's
a simple leak.
They use what's called cryogenic fuel. It's just fuel at a very, very low temperature, and so you can imagine if you have your gas line, there's gaskets and things in there that can kind of wear out over time and things and cause leaks. However, with the shuttle, this fuel is so cold that expansion and contraction of materials is a very, very big factor in what happens within that fuel system. And you're right, they have these gaskets that are within the fuel lines, and they need to expand and contract just right, or these leaks develop. And so again, I'm not really sure exactly where at this time where in the fuel system the leak is, but you can imagine these are things that they have dealt with in the past, and they have to deal with occasionally to make sure that they're just right and that they're not leaking any kind of fuel before they launch the shuttle from the Kennedy Space Center.
But in addition to that, they have to figure out when this launch window, when can they launch, and the launch window, and that has to do with weather and a number of other factors. Is that right?
It really does. And launch windows are extremely difficult to predict and to calculate, and they're complex. That's what it is. There's a lot of factors that go into that. There are a lot of factors that people don't realize. They think, well, okay, if the weather's bad today, how come you can't just launch it tomorrow morning? Or how come you can't just wait until later in the day until the weather improves and go ahead and launch it? And the idea is this. They put the minimum amount of fuel on the shuttle necessary to get it into orbit, to do the orbital maneuvers it has to do, and then come back home. So they don't have a lot of extra fuel on the space shuttle. So that means that when they launch the space shuttle for a mission that has to go up and dock with the International Space Station, they're literally, it's almost like shooting a bullet and trying to hit a moving target. They're literally trying to hit a moving target, which is the International Space Station in orbit. And so the idea is they have to launch that shuttle at just the right time, where that initial energy from the launch will carry it into such an orbit that it will allow it to rendezvous with the International Space Station with the minimum amount of fuel usage. And so that ends up being very complex. That one parameter alone ends up being a very complex thing to calculate. Now, in addition to that, there's a lot of other factors they have to also think about. One that people don't think about is the main the main fuel tank on the shuttle. The main fuel tank on the shuttle, when it launches, they drop that thing off the shuttle. It falls back to the Earth. It has to hit in the ocean in a very specific place because the United States Coast Guard has to go out there and clear out that part of the ocean, make sure there are no fishing trawlers or folks in private vessels out there that the fuel tank can fall on. Another thing that has to fall off in the launch process are these solid rocket boosters. So again, as the shuttle's lifting off, solid rocket boosters detach. They have to be able to fall into a safe location in the ocean. So those things have to also hit very specific targets in the ocean. Now, when you factor that in with astronaut sleep cycle, with the parameters of the mission, with possible emergency landing sites, and the weather at those places, it becomes a very complex matrix of factors that have to be all just right in order for a shuttle to launch. And so I know that people they maybe tend to get a little frustrated with NASA launching the shuttle on time and why can't they keep up to a schedule? But really, when you think about all these factors, it's so complex. You get a pretty quick understanding of why the shuttle is a very, very complex thing to launch.
Well, thank you for helping us understand that. I think it is a very complex process. I was just wondering, is this the last launch of the shuttle?
The last launch of this shuttle, which is Discovery. That's
Discovery.
right. So,
and then we have one more after that planned.
That's right. And Endeavour and Atlantis both may have possible missions. Endeavour scheduled to launch in February, that's for sure. And then Shuttle Atlantis might have one more flight. There's money in the NASA budget right now for one more possible flight in the summertime. But then after that, there are no flights scheduled for the Space Shuttle. This will be the retirement of Space Shuttle Discovery. Endeavour and Atlantis still in active mode. Endeavour scheduled to fly in February. Atlantis may fly in the summer of 2011. But you know who's on this latest flight with Discovery?
No.
It's our old friend Robonaut.
Oh,
do you remember talking about Robonaut a few weeks ago?
Well, Seiji, our operator here, is all about robots. So he's probably very happy that you mentioned what was his name?
His name is Robonaut.
Robonaut. Okay, I got it.
And that's N-A-U-T, not N-O-T.
Okay.
Or not K-N-O-T.
Got it.
It's Robonaut. Now, Robonaut is the first, it's NASA's first robotic astronaut. And he actually has some tasks that he has to perform on this particular mission. So Robonaut has jobs. So when he gets
he's just not getting a ride. He's got to go to work.
That's exactly right. He's not on a free ride. He's not a freeloader. When he gets up to the International Space Station, they're going to put Robonaut to work, and he's going to have various mission assignments. And one of the things that they're going to try to do with Robonaut, they'll try to test him in his ability to be able to perform tasks outside of the International Space Station. So you can imagine if Robonaut's up there living on the International Space Station permanently, that if something breaks on the outside that is in a very hazardous kind of area, you might want to send Robonaut in to see if he can fix it first before you actually send an astronaut out on a very, very dangerous spacewalk. So these are the kinds of things that Robonaut is designed for and will be sent into space for, and perhaps be able to perform some of these repair tasks on the International Space Station.
Well, I'm going to just have to break the news to Seiji that we are not able to afford a Robonaut here in the studio to do some of the things that we're asking him to do and give him time off. So right now, I'm sorry, Seiji, Robonaut is not expected to arrive in the studio anytime soon. But there are a lot of critical other missions. I mean, when I think about just the limited number of launches for the space shuttle that we have, they have to be very selective about what these experiments are going to be, what kind of things they're going to take up there and information brought back.
That's exactly right. And a lot of people don't realize how far ahead of time that they plan these missions. These missions are actually planned. All their science objectives, all their construction objectives on the International Space Station have been planned for years. And so these astronauts have been training for this mission for a number of years as a group, as a team. And so anytime you have a shuttle launch, that group of astronauts, that's on that particular shuttle together has been a unit working for that one shuttle flight for a number of years. And that's, again, people don't realize that. They don't just go to the bullpen of astronauts and say, who wants to go up this week? And it's not like that. Or same way with the science experiments. They don't say, well, which science experiments can we pull off the shelf and throw on the shuttle? They don't really do that. These are things that are planned well in advance, prepared well ahead of time, and so they're you know, it's a set deal for quite a number of months or even years before that shuttle flies as to exactly which science experiments and which construction tasks on the space station will take place during any given shuttle flight.
Right. Well, Sean, thanks so much for that. Now, we talked last week about Comet Hartley 2. That's still in the news, isn't it? And didn't it come close? Did we get to see it?
It did. It did come close, and a lot of people saw it with their amateur telescopes. This comet came close enough to the Earth. Now, why don't you let me back up and say it's not a big comet, but it came close enough to the Earth where people could actually see it with telescopes.
Oh, wow, look at that photo right there.
This makes it look like it came really close. But this is the photo that's actually making the news this week, because just yesterday, this would be Thursday, November the 4th, a spacecraft from NASA flew by that comet very, very close up, a mere 300 miles away from the nucleus.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of a swing pass right by the head of this comet and photographed this comet in absolutely amazing detail. So the internal structure, what the actual ice ball of a comet on the inside looks like, is very, very difficult to find out from the Earth. It's hard by ground-based observation to understand in real detail what the surface of a comet looks like.
I don't think I've ever seen a picture like this of a comet.
You know, this is one of the very greatest photographs of a comet that has ever been taken, of that comet nucleus anyway, and it was just taken yesterday. And so NASA has been releasing these photographs. You can see it the comet kind of rotating. What's really happening there is that the spacecraft is flying by. They're getting a little bit different views of this thing. But it almost looks like it's dumbbell shaped. It's kind of stretched out. It's elongated. And astronomers, with their ground-based observations, have been insinuating that it might be elongated, but they couldn't really tell until this spacecraft flew by. So now they'll have a lot better guess as to next time. They'll be able to compare their ground-based observations with what this comet actually looked like, and better use that to estimate the shapes and sizes of comet nuclei in future comets that may come by the Earth. So this is really groundbreaking stuff. Now, the other thing to remember about a comet, anytime you see a comet like this, these are materials that are left over from the actual formation of the solar system. They're like a little frozen time capsule from the time when the solar system itself was young, when the planets were still forming, when there was swarms of this kind of icy material out there in the solar system. And so this is literally a snapshot of the most ancient history of the entire solar system. So it's really important for astronomers and scientists to be able to sample this material and get a really good look at it and try to understand it as well as they can, because they want to try to figure out what the universe was like in its early stages, but more importantly, what the solar system, our solar system, was like in its earliest stages. And this comet is a very good snapshot of that time back in history.
There's also some gases. It looks like there's things coming off of that, the way it's lit in there, but aren't there poisonous gases associated with these?
Yeah, it's exactly right. What happens is this: a comet, again, it's a frozen snowball, if you will, kind of thing. But the ices that are frozen in there are not all just water ice. There are a lot of dry ice, carbon dioxide, but also things like methane, ammonia, cyanogen, and just pure old cyanide gas.
Okay.
And so this stuff is, as the comet was in deep space, it was frozen solid. But as the comet in its orbit comes close to the sun, where it's a little bit warmer, that comet begins to melt, or we actually call it sublime. It goes from a solid state directly to a gas state. And as it does that, these gases can erupt and shoot out. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing some gases in these photographs kind of shooting out. Now, something kind of interesting is as the spacecraft, which is called Deep Impact, by the way, the spacecraft approached this comet yesterday. Deep Impact was able to photograph these images right here. But right before the pass, this comet shot out a huge jet of gas, of cyanide gas. Now, this is not an actual photograph here. Let me make sure people understand that.
I was going to say that.
This is an artist concept,
right,
but that's a comet outgassing right there, is what they call that. But it's just simply the stuff melting and shooting out in these ultra-powerful jets of material that are just blasted off into space. And so again, this is kind of an artist concept of that taking place. But Deep Impact was able to actually photograph some of that stuff, and these photographs are kind of being released now as these big jets of cyanogen gas were shot out of Comet Hartley 2 during the approach on Thursday. So very interesting set of circumstances there where that huge outgassing would happen right as the spacecraft approached, and they would be able to take some measurements of that phenomenon taking place.
Wow, that is something. And there's a fifth flyby?
Well, this is the fifth comet flyby in history.
Okay,
So there have been comet flybys before. In fact, the first one occurred by a European spacecraft called Giotto, which flew by Comet Halley back in 1986. And now, if you think about that, that's actually a reasonably long time ago. So they had that spacecraft technology even far back there, and they were able to fly a probe reasonably close to the nucleus of Comet Halley, but they simply didn't have the imaging capability and the spectroscopes that they have today, the spectrographs, I should say, that were able to take spectra and do chemical analysis of these cometary nuclei like Deep Impact has in yesterday's flyby. But a number of comet passes have taken place. Again, this is the fifth one. The amazing thing is this same spacecraft also was responsible for the fourth comet flyby in history. So back in 2005, Deep Impact, that's how it got its name, actually flew by a different comet called Comet Tempel 1 and dropped a probe right into that comet. And the idea was to hit that comet nucleus hard enough that it would throw material out and Deep Impact could take observations of that. So that particular experiment, same spacecraft, different comet, back in 2005. And so this is the extended mission of this spacecraft where it's now flying around doing other things, looking for other things. And one of the things they flew it by was Comet Hartley 2.
How about that?
Neat stuff. A huge success story really for NASA. This
really,
thing has
on
been
that
a
particular spacecraft.
very, very successful spacecraft.
Excellent. All right, so let's turn our attention now to something that we've talked about on this show over a period of time now, and that's been NASA, and also what's happening in the government. And you mentioned the story as we come in today about how the elections may impact its future.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have heard the old statement is, well, elections have consequences. Elections mean things. And so when elections happen, they change circumstances. The election that just took place a few days ago, where the Republicans looks as if they're going to they will take control of the House of Representatives, and that's going to change things on committees. Now, committee assignments are done by the party in control, and so now there are two committees which have direct influence on NASA, oversight of NASA, in which both of those committees will have a change in leadership. And it just so happens that it looks like the two people slated to take control of those two committees both have very, very different views from what the president's current view of what NASA should be doing is. And so those two people are, one of them is, his name is Frank Wolf. He's a representative from the state of Virginia, and he'll be taking over the very, very important House Appropriations Committee. And it looks like another gentleman named Ralph Hall from Texas, and you can imagine Texas has a very close relationship with NASA.
Right.
Looks like he'll be taking over what's called the House Science and Technology Committee, which oversees NASA's science mission. So both of these committees, which have a very direct related influence on NASA and its agenda and what they're after, taking over the committees, they have a different view, particularly in the area of human spaceflight. That's where the most recent major changes in NASA have come. NASA has decided to outsource the future of their human spaceflight program and shut down what was called the Constellation program, which was the follow-up to the Space Shuttle system. And because they had decided to shut that down, there was a lot of debate and a lot of disagreement about that. Well, these two new people are coming on board. They're more in favor of keeping human spaceflight located within the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. In other words, keep it as a government program. And so it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out over the next few months, because certainly there's going to be some suggestions made by these incoming people that NASA goes ahead and moves forward with its own human spaceflight program.
Very interesting. Well, we can't wait to see how that plays itself out. Well, Sean, we've covered a lot of things today so far in our show, but what about the Coca-Cola Space Science Center? Now, you're down there every day. There's so many things going on. All right, here we go. Tell us what's happening at Coca-Cola Space Science Center.
Well, as you can guess, it's another big week at Columbus State University's Coca-Cola Space Science Center. Now, the Space Science Center, we do have a lot of things going on, and we try to keep a lot of fun and interesting activities taking place. This Saturday night, the mobile astronomy team with their telescopes will be taking those telescopes out to one of my very favorite places to observe, which is Providence Canyon State Park. It's about 30 miles south of the city of Columbus.
The Little Grand Canyon.
The Little Grand Canyon, as it's well known here in the South. If you go out there and just spend the day out there, you're going to see a bunch of beautiful cliffs with all kinds of colored soils and things in there. And it's a really fun place to go for geology during the day. However, at nighttime, it's a great place to do astronomy. And the reason is it's out far away from city lights. It puts Columbus on the north side of the sky. Most things we like to look at tend to be in the south part of the sky in general. And that south sky out there is absolutely gorgeous, pristine sky. And so the astronomy team will be out there. Now, if you've been watching the temperatures here in Columbus, Georgia, a little bit, they've fallen. And as the temperature falls,
yes,
the skies
definitely
tend to be even more clear because some of that water vapor comes out of the air. And it is going to be an absolutely spectacular, beautiful night Saturday night. The weather looks great. If you want to go out there, you can join the astronomy team at 7 p.m. out at Providence Canyon State Park. If you can't make this one, I'm telling you all this cool stuff so you'll make the next one. You don't want to miss the next one. And so you can get on our website, www.ccssc.org, and you can get on to charlie.org, pull up that website, and you can see the observing schedule for the rest of the year, or we'll have our next year's schedule up for too long, and you can see all the observing nights where the mobile astronomy team will be. They're kind of like a rock band. They tour around. They have a whole concert tour lineup there listed on the website.
They've got a van, yes.
They got a van. They have their own T-shirts. You know, it's just the way it goes when you're cool like that. So they're going out with their telescopes and showing people the nighttime sky throughout the region. And I highly encourage you to join us on one of our mini astronomy nights with the astronomy team from the Space Science Center.
All right, you've got a special exhibit coming up from NASA. This is the traveling exhibit, I guess.
Yes, it is. We are tremendously excited about this exhibit that's coming to the Space Science Center. It's called the Exploration Experience. It's based out of the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. Not too far away from us, but far enough away that they actually have to drive over. And what they're going to be driving over in is a giant, beautiful semi-tractor trailer. The back end of the trailer, there it is right there. Absolutely gorgeous shot of that thing.
Wow.
That tractor trailer right there, it has a side, maybe you can tell from the photograph, it has a side that actually expands out. And so it shoves out, once it parks, it shoves out to the side a little bit. It widens itself out, and it becomes a traveling museum. It's called the Exploration Experience because the content inside of that traveling mobile museum on the back of a semi-truck is all about NASA's mission to explore our solar system and our universe. And some of the neat things that you can see inside there are all kinds of hands-on interactive exhibits. There's a spacesuit where you can get your picture taken looking like an astronaut. But my favorite part, and the part that people should be most excited about, is there's a piece of the moon on the inside of that truck.
All right.
There's an actual sample of the moon. And people don't realize how rare that is. There are not that many pieces of the moon that came back during the Apollo years anyway. And this is one little piece of the moon. You can actually go into this particular traveling museum and touch that piece.
You can touch it.
You can touch a piece of the moon.
Oh, my goodness.
Touch a piece of the history of the American space program, that lunar sample brought back during the Apollo mission.
Fantastic. You know, I'm going to go. Let's just know, and our viewers, you guys need to go to this. All right, tell us again about the dates and the times and what do we need to know about getting there.
It begins on November the 11th, which corresponds with Veterans Day, and we want to also extend this. We're doing a special Veterans Appreciation Day designed around this particular traveling exhibit. So members of the active duty military or retired veterans will get into this whole display, the Space Science Center, the big truck, everything for free. And their families will also receive a discounted price as well. And so if you're active duty military or you're a retired veteran, make sure you come down because you will get in for free and your family, anybody with you, will receive a discounted price. It'll be Thursday, November the 11th, Friday, November 12th, Saturday the 13th. And now the cool thing also is this, though. On the night of Friday, November 12th, we will have a special astronomy night. So we're going to schedule a special night of telescopes at the Space Science Center around this traveling exhibit.
Okay.
So we'll be out there at the Space Science Center with our telescopes looking up at things like the planet Jupiter and some other cool objects that are in the nighttime sky. But also we will have some other activities taking place. We'll have air rocket launches, some other activities inside the lobby of the Space Science Center that don't normally go on. We'll have some food vendors there so you can buy dinner. Come on down and join us from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Friday of next week, November 12th, and you can come down and enjoy all those great activities at the Coca-Cola Space Science Center.
Sean, I am amazed at what you're going to pull off November 11th through the 13th down there. Everybody needs to show up for this. So we want to invite all of our viewers, make plans to go down, see that exhibit, get the exploration experience. We want to support our military Guys, we've got that on the 13th or Saturday, I believe, right?
Yeah, all 3 of those days.
Okay.
Any of those 3 days, the military and veterans discount applies.
And then on November 12th, you're going to have astronomy night at this Coca-Cola Space Science Center, rockets and everything else. Wow, what a time. We all need to be there. Guys, check that out. Put it on your calendar. Sean, thank you so much for coming in today and telling us about all of this news going on. There's so much that's happening here on the planet at the Coca-Cola Space Science Center and out in space with those asteroids coming around and those comets flying around here. Sean, thank you again. Folks, we appreciate you tuning in to Coehp.tv and Columbus State TV. I'm Michael Baltimore. I've been here with Dr. Sean Cruz, and we want to invite you again to continue watching This Week in Space Science. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mike.